Okay, so in this one we are marking Kayla's work. And already, I mean, the first thing I saw, and I said to Mr. Jones when I was looking at this, was that she's done a good plan here. Okay, we can see that she's listed a few things, and she hasn't just listed them, but what she also then said what they're for. Okay, obviously in her plan we don't expect big explanations or anything like that, but we can see that she's identified hard drives, databases, which are, of course, well, one's a piece of hardware, one's a piece of software. We've got email accounts, which is communication and software. She's identified an operating system, yeah, which is good. Short videos, so now we're getting into what they might use and why the database might use them. Okay, so we can see, you know, this is a decent plan to start off with.
I might suggest here that you perhaps, even at the start of the exam, are looking at the way you've planned, is ask for a sheet of paper where you can just quickly write things down, just keywords as quickly as you can for say 2-3 minutes that relate to it, and sort of like a mind map, brainstorm, and then come on and do a plan like this, because here you've actually been quite detailed in what you want to say about things. Like I really like this idea about the short videos and how to use them in equipment. So you may have talked about communication technology in there, getting a video camera, someone recording them, and then having them somewhere on a hard drive with a media player, piece of software, with speakers so that people can listen, or headphones. And in that one example you've covered all 3 points that the question's asked for.
Exactly. And also, I know we said this to Stephen as well, but in terms of, it's also worthwhile here numbering them, things like they go, right, which bits am I going to link together, which bits do work in well together, fit in well together, and you've done it reasonably well in the actual essay, but it's also a good idea to do it in the plan. Okay, so let's go on to the essay, and we're going to start here. And it's good to see that you have actually used an introduction, as an introduction will allow you to set the context of what you are actually going to talk about. And it's also good to see you haven't just repeated the question or the task that you've been given. You've actually gone into a bit of detail, but not too much. Okay, so you give us a very clear idea of what you are about to talk about in this essay.
Set up the flow and the understanding. You're showing that you've got an understanding and the appropriate writing style of the essay. So a good start. Okay,
so it says, when buying a computer, it will already come with an installed operating system. So you've mentioned a piece of software on a computer. I suppose in theory you have stated 2 bits of one bit of hardware, 1 bit of software.
It does show good understanding as well, that you understand that computers have to come with operating systems.
Yeah, so there will also be a built-in hard drive, which will be crucial when setting up a business like a gym. There will be a lot of information inputted onto the computer, and it must be kept or stored in the hard drive. You then go on to say a database would be extremely useful here. It would allow you to save information such as the client's personal details. Now that's all very good. I mean, you know, you've said, you've given descriptions of what different things are going to be used for, and what you said is actually true. Okay, now on the mark scheme you've got different sections here, and the last section, the high mark range, is actually about discussing. Now, having read what you've put so far, obviously when I was reading it I couldn't rule out that you haven't done a discussion later on. Obviously I know that you haven't finished reading it now, but at this point you may want to be discussing the advantages and disadvantages of a database, okay, or a hard drive, or maybe even talking about alternatives. So you could say, okay, maybe they don't want to store everything on the hard drive, perhaps they want to store some stuff up in online cloud or something like that. It's not always a cloud, obviously, but or you want to talk about backing up, the dangers of it,
or even just discussing the advantages and disadvantages of a hard drive. As Sir said, hard drives aren't always reliable. You could get a virus which wipes everything.
And of course they're not portable at all, which you may want.
Yeah.
Right. Also, you may want to mention here, is it suitable to just have one computer in a what do you call it? In a gym. Okay, you're probably more likely going to want to have some form of server somewhere.
I think the database would be start a separate paragraph nicely as well. For example, one of the things I would have to store on my main hard drive would be the database.
Exactly, and then you're linking in there as well. Okay, but you haven't gone into enough detail there in the database stuff to go into the highest mark range. Okay, so now we get onto spreadsheets. and it says spreadsheets are as important as a database. That's a good link to the previous paragraph we can see there, because you can very clearly see you're moving on from databases to spreadsheets. Spreadsheets will allow you to input costs such as electricity, how much money you are making in a day. It allows you to compare and manipulate data using formulae, that should be, and spreadsheets will tell you if you are making a profit or losing money. Slight
Again,
spelling mistake, you've written losing money, but that's nothing.
Again, much more of a description of what a spreadsheet is and how it could be used, rather than discussing its advantages, its disadvantages, or even how it could be used as an alternative to a database or alongside a database, which brings in the discussion.
Exactly, because it's too often that people actually think spreadsheets are the only thing that you can use to do finances and things like that, and you'll actually find that very few places actually use what you would consider to be a spreadsheet for their finances.
Another thing that you could discuss here is perhaps getting an off-the-shelf or bespoke solution made, which is for a gym. There's enough gyms out there that I'm sure a company's made a gym management product.
Yeah. Okay. So, let's have a look at the next bit. So then you said, when wanting to communicate, straight away I say, right, she's talking about communication, she's spoken about hardware, she's spoken about software, now onto communication. Therefore, I know she's definitely not in the lowest mark range. I know she's at very least in the mid-mark range. So, when wanting to communicate information about the gym, such as general information or promotions, a quick and easy way would be to set up an email account. Emails mean you can send information quickly, cheaply, into a wide group of people. For example, the emailing... Can you turn over, sir?
Sorry.
The emailing up here system allows you to make groups using the address book in the email. This allows you to send large amounts of data to large amounts of people. I'm very impressed that you remember what we covered last week in that. That's very good. Okay, but again, it's a good description, and you said why you could use it. There is a lack of discussion there of maybe an alternative ways you could do the same thing or similar things, or maybe have joint systems running next to each other to do it. Okay, going down onto graphics. Graphics software and basic software such as word processors are important.
Can I stop you there? Basic's the wrong word there. You're talking about general software packages. That's what you're looking for. That's the key word. Use of specialist vocabulary comes up all the time in the Highmark brand. Some specialist vocabulary. Okay, so
yeah, you've used enough elsewhere, but do be careful, as said. So we're graphic software, and basic software such as word processors are important when you want to enhance a reputation or advertise the gym. For example, the graphic software would allow you to create posters, and the word processor allows you to write about the gym, send letters, things like that you'd want to be saying. If you bought a printer, you could print leaflets, posters or flyers and hand them around. Now I'm just going to jump in here as well. Don't forget, now I don't necessarily think we have covered this in great detail. I think you cover it more in Info 3, to be honest. But in terms of, you could say that, however, you would the kind of printers they would get may not would allow them to print something to sufficient quality to attract the different customers. Therefore, you might want to look at outsourcing to a professional printing company, things like that. And then you'd be discussing, wouldn't you? Because you're talking about alternatives. Where did we get to?
Just an example, just to sort of to throw that into context, something like you could make your own Christmas cards, but then if you wanted to make them personal or to get a better quality, then you'd outsource to someone like Moonpig.
Exactly. So let's have you said it's also important that you consider movie making software. It would help enhance the reputation, but also if you had TVs in the gym, so we're going software, hardware, showing the users how to use the equipment, the users would really benefit. Now, as I said, I asked you all in the lesson today whether you have been to the gym. I know you said you've been once or something like that. You probably don't realise, but I do go to the gym every now and again. And quite often in the gym, they will have TVs within the equipment and stuff like that. Modern equipment now will actually have integrated systems within them. And the last bit, As you can probably tell, Mr. Jones can't speak anymore because he finds the idea of me working out so ludicrously hilarious. Okay, so these hardware, software and communication technologies should be considered when opening or setting up a business due to the fact that they could help the business and gym run more efficiently. Okay, so we have got there a decent conclusion that sums things up. You haven't brought yourself into it or anything like that, you're just going to the point, which is good. Now we gave you 15 there, which is the top of the good mark range. If I come here to the good mark range, it is between 11 and 15 marks. Okay, we gave you that because you have described a variety of some hardware, communication technology and software that were appropriate. Okay, it doesn't even say that were all appropriate, it says which may be appropriate. You've used some specialist vocabulary and you've explained it. Your meaning is clear. You've used a form and style of writing, which is generally very good. Okay, you've linked well. There are the odd laps here and there. Okay, you have got, at the bottom it's talking about where it actually says well-linked sentences, which you have done at the bottom. There may be occasional errors of spelling, punctuation and grammar, which there are, but we're saying that you've met everything you need to do in that point. You haven't discussed anyway. If you had discussed once, you probably would have got to the bottom of the one above it.
If you take out that top sentence here and compare it to the bottom, the sort of the higher mark range, I would say that you've done all of those. It's a really well structured essay, shows clear flow and a good form of writing style. It is literally you have not discussed, which is one of the most important things in there.
Okay, so 15 out of 20, which is of course